Hello and welcome to 5 Minutes in the Shed. So, it's been a while. I've been working on all kinds of other stuff, been distracted by my Tribza. The old Project 2 Smoke is there on pause for a little while. However, got a new project on the go. So, in May next year, the Triumph Owners Motorcycle Club celebrate 75 years of the club. So they've got a weekend thing going on, Shelsley Walsh Hill Climb, and I need to take a bike up the hill. So I thought, I can't take a Tribza because that's got some BSA in it. I can't take my Triton because that's got some Norton in it. Can't take a new one because new one. All right. So I thought I would drag out my old Tiger 90. Here she is. Now, I've had this bike for a minute or two. I had this bike when I was 18. My dad bought me this as my first big bike, and I've had it ever since. Never been restored. Just painted occasionally, fixed occasionally, changed occasionally, modified occasionally. It is by nowhere near standard, so I'll walk you through what's not standard about it, but it's got a few issues at the minute. Last time I rode it, it cried all its oil out, which was probably 3 years ago. So it's been a bit neglected, but now's its time. It's going to get proper going over. It's going to be race ready to go up a hill climb. Let me walk you around it and show you it in more detail. Okay, so here's the old girl in all her detail. Where to start? Well, it's a 1963 Tiger 90, which means it's supposed to have like a skirt on the back and 2-into-1 exhaust pipe, things like that. However, it's been changed over the years. It's got, let's go through the oldest changes first. So, oldest changes are probably the alloy rims. It's got Acron alloy rims. I don't know if you can see where it says Acron on there. About there somewhere. There we go. Acron alloy rims, 18-inch, not 19. You'll notice the front brake's missing. That's because there's a bigger brake on the way. Bit of a story behind that. Won't go into it now, but there is a brake on the way. So it's got 18-inch alloy rims. It's got stainless steel mudguards. They should be painted steel, but they're not. You'll notice it's got a front stand. Very, very handy when you're changing the front wheel. Coming down to the back, matching 18-inch alloy rims. Again, stainless steel mudguard. And it's got a pair of reverse cone megas on it, which make it sound wicked. And I don't care, it just sounds ace. Paint job on it. This is like its 4th paint job, I think, since I've had it. Starting at the back, the number plate bracket here. I don't know if you can see the colour of the paint on it. If you look very... it needs a bit of a polish. It's covered in dust. I don't know if you can quite see, but there's a metallic finish to that paint there, and the same metallic finish on the oil tank and side panel. That is Aston Martin Carbon Black. It also matches the headlamp brackets. So you can just about see the metallic in there. That's Aston Martin Carbon Black. And then the tank is very, very dusty. But the top of the tank is, let's see if we can zoom in a bit. That is Aston Martin Emerald Green over what is known as Aston Martin Morning Frost White. With a gold coach line, obviously. It's got the older tank badges on. It's an older tank actually. This one, the tank spot on it is supposed to have coil cutouts, and as you can see, there are no cutouts. So the coils are underneath. You can see the old lugs there for the hand pump, which is supposed to go on it. So it's an older tank. It's supposed to have chrome trims going down the side, but the paint was so nice I didn't bother. It's got later knee pads on it as well. So, and it's got a pair of Rinthal handlebars, just because they're nice and comfy. So engine wise, engine's pretty standard. It's got a trick points cover on it, things like that. And I've got a nice extendable float bowl for that monoblock carburetor that's going to go on as well. Some of the rubbers have worn out, you know, foot peg rubbers and things like that. Missing a kickstart rubber. You know, just bits and bobs. So yeah, by no means a standard bike, but it is a nice bike, you know. A good quick detached rear hub as well, so it makes it very easy to take the wheel out. That was an optional extra, that was, back in the day. Engine's been pretty oil tight actually, pretty good engine this is. It started to look a little bit scabby around the edges, so it needs a bit of a clean up. And you'll notice the downpipes don't match each other, so it needs a new pair of downpipes as well, I think, while I'm at it. So yes, last time I rode it, spat all of its oil out, right? So there must be a blockage in there somewhere. So engine's going to come out. I'm going to strip the whole thing. I'm going to do the sludge trap in the bottom of it and give it a proper rebuild and polish it while it's out. That's the plan. I don't know what's wrong with it. Could be catastrophic. Could just be a bit shitty oil due to lousy maintenance by its owner, which is me. Well, I have no excuse for that. Just laziness. But this bike, it's always in the garage. It was always just swing a kickstart and it goes. There's never been any trouble at all. So yeah, I got lazy. So what have I done? I've let the oil out so far. There's the oil coming out the sump. Now there isn't a sump on these bikes, they're a dry sump. However, I think pretty much all of that oil was in the sump. So it's wet sumped horrifically while it's been standing. I don't know if I don't know why it would have done that. Oil pump, something, I don't know. We'll find out. But pretty much all of the oil came out the sump. The tank was pretty much empty. So yeah, that's not good. The oil actually looks pretty clean. No metal fragments came out. There's nothing in the bottom of the something. So hopefully there's nothing's eating itself. It just needs a bit of a rebuild. So I'm going to take the engine out. To do that, I need to I'll take the coil and the horns off, get that out of the way, spark plugs out, carburetor off, all that kind of stuff. I might take the cylinder head off while it's in the bike, just because you can, and it makes it a bit lighter to pull the lump out. When I've pulled it out, then it's going over to my freshly cleared bench for the stand, which is there, which is going to be cool. And my parts washer is all primed and ready to go, because it's going to be a lot of parts to wash. So I think first things first, I need to take the big bits off: petrol tank, carburetor, yeah, stuff like that. So I'm going to dive into it, and we'll see where we get to. Okay, so lots of stuff taken off. I've disconnected a few wires and drained a bit more oil out. Drained the oil out the primary side because that needed to come out. Didn't want it on the bench. I've also drained the gearbox oil out, but when I did that, not a lot of oil came out, and some water came out with it. So I'm a bit concerned about the gearbox now. But no, that's another job. We'll see what that's like when we take it apart. So I've coiled up the clutch cable there. I could take it off inside that casing, but the kickstart and gear lever is quite handy to hang on to when you're lifting the engine out, so that's why that's still there. The points cable is, well, electronic ignition cable is coiled up at the front there, and down underneath, that's the power from the alternator, which is hanging down there. So to take the engine out now, what we've got to do now, that's it. I mean, I disconnected the oil lines. They're there as suspected. The tank was dry. Everything was in the engine, which is a bit concerning. So now there's a little sort of 3-point bracket there same both sides. That holds everything in the entire world ever on it. It holds the oil tank on, it holds the rear mudguard on, holds the engine mount on, and the other side it's the chain guard and everything. So they're a bit crunchy, difficult to get to. I need to get to the chain guard, which you can just see the front of it there. Actually, let's go around the other side. Wobbly wobbly cam. So I need to take the chain off. I did have the presence of mind to position the split link right there, but looking at the front, the chain guard is pretty close to the engine, so I think I'm going to move that out of the way anyway. So chain guard off, which is pretty easy. There's a nut there, but the front one is, I don't know if I can even get the camera in to show you. Front one is those two little fixings down there, which is a pain to get to. But I think when I've taken this engine plate off, it should be pretty easy. Also then I have to take the two engine plates off the front, and then the final one is the big bolt under the engine, which you can't really see because the camera's not focusing on it, but there is a big bolt under the engine. But like I said, I'm going to take the cylinder head off first, because that gives you more up and down adjustment. I've taken the side panel off mainly because I don't want to scratch it as I'm sort of going in here. Yeah, this is that. Okay, I think the next bit is chain guard, these engine mounts here, then we'll take the cylinder head off. Okay. Okay, so this is a thing that's unique to Triumph ownership, right? So let me switch some light on for a second. There we go. So you can see where I've taken the bracket off here. Right, so there's that triangle bracket which bolts the engine to the frame there. That also mounts the mudguard there. See these two holes in the mudguard? Now, when I just took it apart, let me show you the bracket wherever it is. Here it is. Here it is. So it's probably easier if I show you by the bike. All right, so that's the bracket, right, that holds the frame to the engine, and then this kind of big U piece there has got two holes in it, which corresponds to those two holes there. There was no bolts in those. However, there is witness marks that bolts have been in. So for some reason it shed those bolts. Don't know where they went. I guess I'm never going to see those again. So found two missing bolts, and I also found as well on this bracket, that peg here is what the oil tank sits on. And the oil tank has got two bolts at the top as well. One there, which is rubber mounted, and one here, which is rubber mounted, and as you can see the bolts fell out of that one as well. So that's three bolts that should have been in it that are missing so far. It's amazing. Taking old Triumph apart, find most of it's gone down the road in a hail of sparks somewhere. Okay, so back of the engine's free, got one left at the bottom and the box in the front. So next job, cylinder head. So first thing we need to do is take off the oil line, which is this one. On these early small engines, the oil line runs across the top and not in the end of the shafts. So we're going to take the oil line off, then we're going to take the rockers off. These bolts here that hold the rockers on, and cylinder head. So there's 8 cylinder head bolts, 2, 4, and then same on the other side. So I need to take those off. So yeah, rockers, cylinder head, and then we'll come back and have a look at it. Okay, I haven't even got the cylinder head off yet, but I think I found out what was wrong with the engine. So, this valve here, it feels okay on the top. Oh, that one. That one has got a big bruise on the top of it. Let's see if you can see from the other side. Oh no, that's too extreme close up. There's a bruise in the top of that. You can see there? There's a bruise there. And that one's okay. That one, the spring looks a bit odd inside it. The middle spring, the inside spring. So I'm worried about the spring in that one. Anyway, what I found was, let's take you over to the bench. I found that these bolts, move that over, these bolts are the ones that go through the rocker covers, and then there's like a recess bit here, there, and that's where the oil line goes, with a copper washer above it and below it, and that is how the oil gets out of the top of the engine. Alright, so the oil comes out through here. Don't know if you can see the hole. There's the hole, there's the hole. Comes out that hole there into this space here and then back into the tank. Now I noticed as I took these off, this is really, if you can see, really crunchy. It's like a crunch fest of grit in there. So that tells me that there's grit in the oil in the top of the engine. Don't know where from. So we've got to find out where the grit in the engine is coming from. Obviously something's got broken, right? So I took off the rocker. Here's the rocker. You can see the terrible job I did at gluing the rocker caps on because they kept falling off. So in there are some nasty particulates. Can't really see them in there. Top of the push rods feel okay. It's quite oily in there. Doesn't look oil starved as such. But then I pulled the push rods out. These are the push rods which go up and down, which make the rockers go up and down. Now this one was the one that was really tight. Alright, so it was like, it feels like it had been over adjusted, so there was no clearance, and it's not very good at the end. It's a little bit battered and there's bits of metal filings coming off it. You can see it on my finger there. So a bit worried about that one because it was too tight. The other side, the rocker was too loose, and this is what I found. Dun dun dun, I think that's my culprit. That bad boy has jumped out the side of its seat. It's supposed to sit in a really nice little cup like that, and that's supposed to be smooth and rounded at the end, and that's had its head kicked in big time. So we've got an engine full of metal, bits of aluminium off these rods, and that metal will have blocked tiny little holes like that in there. There's my issue. So I need to now strip the entire engine out, clean it all out of metal particles and see what broke. Hopefully it hasn't damaged too much stuff. We shall see. Exhaust side off next, and we'll see what we're finding there. Okay, so cylinder head's off. Let me move this oil pipe out of the way. Cylinder head's off. This is the one which wasn't too bad actually. It's a bit sooty and dirty. This is the one that had the terrible play in the inlet rocker. It's very oily down that hole, which is a bit of a concern. I can show you the cylinder head. So, cylinder head's here. Right hand side looks pretty good, sparkly with carbon and all that, but not bad at all. Whereas this side, it's gooey and crunchy and very, very oily. So that was the bad side. Cylinder number 2 was the bad one. And I'll just turn it over. That's the valves. The exhausts seem okay. A little bit battered on the top though, I must admit. I put these valves in about 2001 maybe, something like that, I think. Although my dad might have put some valves in since. That one doesn't look too bad. This one, so its head kicked in. However, this one is the one with the dodgy looking spring. I'm going to have to get in there and have a look at that. Spring on that one looks okay. Either way, it needs taking apart. In fact, while I'm at it, I had this re-welded on some years ago. I never did find the piece to go in there. It's always bothered me. I might get a piece of metal welded into that, get it vapor blasted while it's off. So there we go, there it is. I don't know what this is. This is horrible. I think it's just the paint coming off the barrels, who knows. Anyway, regardless, it all needs a very good cleanup. That's very, very gritty. So yeah, it started to blow it out of the head gasket. Oh, with lots of grit in it. Nasty. I think I must have stopped the engine just in time once bored over, so I need to get those pistons out and have a look. Actually, in a second, let's put them down. Let's see if there's any scoring. Yeah. Yes, there's scoring. Cylinder number 1. That feels okay. But cylinder number 2, it's definitely got a bit of action there. You can see it. Yeah, it's seen some action. See, the other side's a bit polished, but I don't know. We'll take them off and see how it looks. Right then, so next job is engine out. So we've got those bolts to take off, bolt at the bottom, and then the whole thing just lifts out in one lump. So it's going to be difficult to film that because it's a bit of a pain and might have 2 people around it. So what I'm going to do is do that, and the next time you see it, it'll be on the bench down there on the engine stand. Cool. And I also need to sort out all these bolts and nuts and ordered them. I've already marked up stuff as inlet and exhaust. I'm sure I marked that up as exhaust. Yes, X for exhaust. That's how you spell it. So yeah, tear down. I'm going to need to replace stuff. Might have to rebuild the engine, like as in new pistons, rings, rebore. We shall see. Let's get it on the bench and have a look. So I think we'll call it a day for now. I've covered my workbench in bits of Triumph. We have a poor old naked bike here in pieces all over my shed now. We're in. That's it. It's game on. Thanks for watching. See you all next time.